So yeah, okay. So I want to quickly cover. I know I was talking about this before. I don't know who really heard what I was saying because everything was shutting down. But I want to quickly cover the story of the hurricanes, plural. And CNN just seems to be an energy hog of a website. But anyways, Hurricane Hannah heads to Texas as two other storms threaten Hawaii and the Caribbean. So yes, there's a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. Three separate storm systems are threatening the United States and the Caribbean this weekend. They are Hurricane Hannah in Mexico, Gulf of Mexico, Hurricane Douglas in the Pacific Ocean, and Tropical Storm Gonzalo in the Atlantic. Hurricane Hannah strengthened to a Category 1 Saturday morning, that would be today, and is expected to make landfall in southern Texas today. That was very, very quick. How quickly that storm turned into a hurricane. So who knows how quickly it will strengthen before it hits the shore. The first hurricane of the season in the Atlantic has sustained winds of 75 miles per hour around 7 a.m. Central Time. And its center was about 100 miles east-southeast of Corpus Christi. It is forecast to make landfall along the Texas coast, likely somewhere between Corpus Christi and Brownsville. In the afternoon or early evening, some additional strengthening is possible before Hannah strikes. There's a hurricane warning in effect, and storm surges of up to 5 feet are possible in some areas, including Corpus Christi Bay. Heavy rain is expected in South Texas and Mexican states of Coahuila, Nuevo Leon, and Tamaulipas through Saturday night. 3 to 5 inches of rain expected along the upper Texas and Louisiana coasts. A hurricane in the Atlantic at this time of year is somewhat ahead of the norm, and the Atlantic's first hurricane does not normally form until about 2 weeks into August. Way ahead of schedule. So Hannah is on track to become the first hurricane to hit Texas in the month of July since Hurricane Dolly in 2008. Hurricane Douglas is approaching Hawaii, but is forecast to weaken before it reaches the island chain this weekend. Douglas peaked as a Category 4 storm on early Friday and is now a major Category 3 storm with winds of 115 miles per hour. Steady weakening is expected to continue over the next 36 hours as it approaches Hawaii. Recent model trends indicate a northward shift to the path of the hurricane. Regardless, this is huge. Look at that. Regardless of its exact track and whether it makes a direct landfall, severe impacts are still anticipated across the islands as the threats extend well away from the storm's center. Hurricane force winds extend 25 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend outward up to 105 miles, meaning this doesn't need to be a direct landfall to have serious consequences. When Douglas reaches the island chain Saturday evening or Sunday morning, it will likely be a Category 1 hurricane or strong tropical storm. Watch for king tides and/or storm surges. Hurricane watch is in effect for all of Hawaii except for the island of Kauai. Tracking Douglas, tropical storm Gonzalo is set to move through the southern windward islands on Saturday, bringing heavy rain and strong winds to the islands. Gonzalo is no longer expected to impact the windward islands as a strong tropical storm or Category 1 hurricane, but now as a weaker tropical storm. Okay, so that's your update for that. Right on. Welcome back, guys. 48 watching, 20 likes. Please like up the video. We'll be here to cover the rest of climate change stuff going on. Charlie Adams, quiet ape observing. Quiro hikes, hungry ape. Yes, I'm getting to hungry ape levels myself. Osama number 5, naughty ape. All right, let's move on. Well, first let me cover this tweet by a guy named Truth Raider. Says, as I am drinking B-52 shots at the Blade Runner bar, China is flooding small villages to save Wuhan during the Three Gorges Dam collapse. No media is covering this fact. So interestingly, over the last week, we've heard a lot of people talking about a possible collapse of the Three Gorges Dam, and that they are doing some mitigation efforts. They're allowing some of the water, releasing some water into surrounding areas to alleviate some of the pressure. Anyways, this is from the Wall Street Journal from today. China's mighty Yangtze is heaving from rain, and the Three Gorges will be tested. So this is ongoing. I'm not going to get the whole story here, but I'm just reading the headline that is today from the Wall Street Journal. Heavy rain has battered central and southern China over the past few weeks, causing widespread flooding, the worst in decades. China has a long history of deadly floods, including the one in 1931 that killed 2 million people, and another in 1998 when, according to the government estimates, 1/5 of the country's population was affected. So this is a serious issue, and someone made a video, like a computer simulation of what would happen if the dam collapsed. So this is clearly on people's minds, and this is clearly something that is within the realm of possibility. And because it's been a topic of conversation for the last at least 2 weeks, apparently they haven't. It hasn't collapsed yet. Here's a video. Sorry, I'm going to go back to this. I apologize. This is video in China. If it will play, or if I can play it, anyways. And I don't know if this is, actual footage or not, but I'm taking this on face value that this is footage of them, taking apart some of the dam, or letting some of the water go out. So somebody did a computer simulation of the Three Gorges Dam collapsing, and it's got everybody very concerned. And basically, the video estimates the collapse of the dam would release a 100-meter wall of water racing at 100 kilometers per hour. A video showing the consequences of a catastrophic failure of the Three Gorges Dam has quickly gone viral on social media. According to the Chinese government statistics, 45.2 million people have been affected by the floods that have ravaged 27 provinces along the Yangtze River, Huai River, and the Yellow River, as well as southern China since the start of June. Many have cast doubt on the integrity of the Three Gorges Dam as it faces the greatest test in its history, while others have questioned the structure's purported purpose of flood control, given the extensive flooding recently seen both above and below the dam. On Tuesday, the Chinese financial news site Caixin Lengyan released a controversial video that simulates, not stimulates, the devastating flooding that would occur if the vaunted Three Gorges Dam collapsed. The video shows the path the wall of water might take and includes estimates on the speed, depth, and reach of the floodwaters all the way to Wuhan. Anyways, just Google this video and you can find it. It's pretty wild. Kuro Hikes, they did just build this dam. This is they built it like 20 years ago, I think. So yeah, you said the 90s. It was, I don't know the exact date, but so yeah, this is an ongoing situation. We'll be keeping an eye on this here situation. Let's move on. More flood news. A critical situation. Bangladesh in crisis. as monsoon floods follow super cyclone. This is from yesterday, despite flood planning efforts, hundreds have been killed and millions hit as a third of the land is submerged by non-stop rain. Oh, darn it. They did it to me again. Give me 1 second. Let's see if I can do this. Bangladesh could be plunged into a humanitarian crisis as it undergoes the most prolonged monsoon flooding in decades. We could probably all assume correctly that this might be climate change driven, while it is still recovering from the effects of Super Cyclone Amphan. Remember Amphan. Despite the UN lauding its new initiatives for early intervention aimed at preparing communities for crisis, 550 people have been killed, 9.6 million affected by the disaster in Bangladesh, Nepal, and northeastern India, according to the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent. Bangladesh's Ministry for Natural Disasters has estimated that a third of the country is already underwater. With heavy rains set to continue until the end of July, the UN has estimated that this flooding could be the most protracted since 1988. Razul Karim Chowdhury, executive director of the Bangladeshi NGO Coast, said the country was far more prepared for flooding than in the past, but that populations in flooded areas might end up in dire need because of a combination of existing, localized, and national crises. He said incomes had already been hit by the government's closure of 25 state-owned jute mills, mostly in northern areas that have been flooded, and by the COVID-19 pandemic. The country has been locked down for 4 months, and that has had a serious impact. 40% of rural income was coming from urban areas, and then suddenly laborers and rickshaw pullers weren't sending money home, said Chowdhury. Almost a third of the population has dropped under the poverty line. This will have an impact on food security and the purchasing power. This is a critical situation we have to overcome. He said local organizations had exhausted funds responding to the pandemic, so the UN and international organizations would need to step in, especially to support farmers whose crops may be damaged before the August rice harvest. The UN said it had been trying to preempt damage to livelihoods by predicting where support needed to be sent ahead of time using advances in data and forecasting analytics. That had allowed the release of relief worth of $5.2 million from its reserve fund for humanitarian emergencies to counter severe flooding over the past week in the form of cash, hygiene, and health kits and equipment to protect farmers' materials from water damage. River erosion makes the situation worse. They lose everything but hope and have to struggle for days. This year, riverine communities across the Brahmaputra and Teesta river basins are facing severe erosion, he said. A small riverine community, the water gypsy, live in the rivers on boats. Floods make their life and livelihoods harder. So the entire area is beset by massive flooding, higher than average, of course, flooding. And that is an ongoing situation as well that we are going to continue to take a look at. And lastly, I want to cover this article from The Guardian. This is from George Monbiot. And this is from July 21st. People want a greener, happier world now, but our politicians have other ideas. Of course they do. They always do. Boris Johnson's return to normality will only mean more consumerism at the expense of the planet. We must resist it. Oh, again, they don't understand. I'm already subscribed. These guys, these Guardian guys. Anyways, let's read this. Continue. Out there somewhere, marked on no map, but tantalizingly near, is a promised land called normal. to which one day we can return. This is the magical geography we are taught by politicians such as Boris Johnson with his significant return to normality. And Trump is also, trying to imagine a normal that won't exist anymore, of course. It is the story we tell ourselves, even if we contradict it with the very next thought. There are practical reasons to believe that normal is a fairyland to which we can never return. The virus has not gone away and is likely to keep recurring in waves, but let's focus on another question. If such a land existed, would we want to live there? The polls consistently suggest we would not. A survey by Britain Thinks a fortnight ago found that only 12% of people want life to be exactly as it was before. Interesting. A poll at the end of June commissioned by the nursery provider Bright Horizons suggested that just 13% of people want to return to working as they did before the lockdown. Again, very interesting, as a YouGov study in the same week revealed that only 6% of us want the same type of economy as we had before the pandemic. Another survey by the same pollsters in April showed only 9% of respondents want to return to normal. It's rare to see such strong and consistent results on any major issue. Of course, we would all like to leave the pandemic behind with its devastating impacts on physical and mental health, its exacerbation of loneliness, the lack of schooling, and the collapse in employment. But this doesn't mean that we want to return to the bizarre and frightening world the government defines as normal. Ours was no land of lost content, but a place in which lethal crises were gathering long before the pandemic struck. Alongside our many political and economic dysfunctions, normality meant accelerating the strangest and deepest predicament humankind has ever confronted, the collapse of our life support systems. Last month, confined to our homes, we watched columns of smoke rising from the Arctic, where temperatures reached a highly abnormal 38°C. Such apocalyptic imagery is becoming the backdrop to our lives. We scroll past images of fire consuming Australia, California, Brazil, Indonesia, inadvertently normalizing them. In a brilliant essay at the beginning of this year, the author Mark O'Connell described this process as the slow atrophying of moral imaginations. We are acclimatizing ourselves to our existential crisis. When business as usual resumes, so does the air pollution that kills more people every year than COVID-19 has yet done, and exacerbates the impacts of the virus. Climate breakdown and air pollution are two aspects of a wider dysbiosis. Dysbiosis means the unraveling of ecosystems. The term is used by doctors to describe the collapse of our gut biomes. It is equally applicable to all living systems, rainforests, coral reefs, rivers, and soil. They are unspooling at shocking speed due to the cumulative effects of normality, which entails a perpetual expansion of consumption. Ding, ding, ding. This month, we learned that $10 billion worth of precious metals, such as gold and platinum, are dumped in landfill every year, embedded in tens of millions of tons of lesser materials in the form of electronic waste. The world's production of e-waste is rising by 4% a year. It is driven by another outlandish norm, planned obsolescence. Our appliances are designed to break down. They are deliberately engineered not to be repaired. This is one of the reasons why the average smartphone containing precious metals extracted at great environmental costs lasts for between 2 and 3 years, while the average desktop printer prints for a total of 5 hours and 4 minutes before it is discarded. Disgusting. The living world and the people it supports cannot sustain this level of consumption, but normal life depends on it. The compound cascading effects of dysbiosis push us towards what some scientists warn would be global systemic collapse. The polls on this issue are also clear. We do not want to return to the madness. A YouGov survey suggests that 8 out of 10 people want the government to prioritize health and well-being above economic growth during the pandemic, and 6 out of 10 would like it to stay that way when or if the virus abates. A survey by Ipsos produced a similar result. 58% of British people want a green economic recovery, while 31% disagree. As in all such polls, Britain sits close to the bottom of the range. By and large, the poorer the nation, the greater the weight its people give to environmental issues. In China, in the same survey, the proportions are 80% and 16%. Good God. That tells you how aware and concerned people in China are about the environment. And in India, 81% and 13%. The more we consume, the more our moral imagination atrophies. But the Westminster government is determined to shove us back into hypernormality regardless of our wishes. We are also, I'm going to interject, that we are the ones that are sheltered and cushioned by our lifestyles to think that everything is okay or everything can be okay if we just go back to whatever normal we think we deserve. This week, the Environment Secretary George Eustace signaled that he intends to rip up our system of environmental assessments. The government's proposed free ports in which tax and regulations are suspended will not only exacerbate fraud and money laundering, but also expose the surrounding wetlands and mudflats and the rich wildlife they harbor to destruction and pollution. The trade deal it intends to strike with the U.S. could override parliamentary sovereignty and destroy our environmental standards without public consent. Guess who else is doing that? At a quickening pace, so is the Trump administration. Just as there has never been a normal person, there has never been a normal time. Normality is a concept used to limit our moral imaginations. There is no normal to which we can return or should wish to return. We live in abnormal times. They demand an abnormal response. Good stuff from George Monbiot. I hope you all enjoyed that, as I did. And he's right on the money, and he's echoing something that I've been saying, for many months now. That going back to normal is not the thing to do, that we must embrace an entirely different way of existing or operating in the world in order to combat the damage that we've done to the environment. It is the only way. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.